The fluorescent lights of Wilson's Market on Wilshire Boulevard cast their usual sterile glow across the polished floor as Denzel Washington pushed his cart down aisle 7. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late October, and the Los Angeles heat still lingered despite the fall season. Dressed in a simple navy blue polo shirt, jeans, and a baseball cap pulled low, Denzel had managed to shop in relative anonymity. Just another customer picking up groceries for the week. He had nearly finished his shopping list when he reached the checkout area. The store wasn't particularly busy, with only a few lanes open. As he approached lane 3, something about the elderly man bagging groceries caught his attention. There was a familiar dignity in the way the man stood, despite his slightly hunched shoulders. The man's hands moved with purpose, carefully arranging items in paper bags. Denzel slowed his pace, studying the man's profile. The years had etched deep lines around his eyes and mouth, and his once dark hair was now completely silver. But there was no mistaking that authoritative posture. A posture that had commanded respect in the hallways of Fordham High School more than 40 years ago. "Mr. Matthews?" Denzel asked, his voice quiet but clear. The elderly man looked up, squinting slightly before his eyes widened in recognition. "Mr. Washington," he replied, his voice still carrying that same distinctive timbre that had once echoed through school assemblies. "Well, I'll be." Harold Matthews, now 78 years old, stood before him in a green store apron, a name tag pinned to his chest. The man who had once been the formidable principal of Fordham High, who had mentored hundreds of students including a young, sometimes troubled Denzel, was now bagging groceries at a supermarket. "I can't believe it's you, sir," Denzel said, abandoning his cart and extending his hand. Mr. Matthews wiped his palms on his apron before accepting the handshake, which Denzel immediately turned into a warm embrace. "Look at you," Mr. Matthews said, stepping back to take in the sight of his former student. "From troublemaker to one of the finest actors of our time. I always knew you had something special, son." The cashier and the customers in line were beginning to realize what was happening. Whispers of, "Is that Denzel Washington?" rippled through the checkout area. "What are you doing here, Mr. Matthews?" Denzel asked, his brow furrowing with concern. The older man shrugged, his smile never faltering. "Retirement doesn't stretch as far as it used to. Social Security checks only cover so much these days. Been here 3 days a week for about 2 years now." Denzel shook his head slowly, a mix of disbelief and admiration crossing his face. "The man who changed so many lives, including mine, and this is how the system treats you. Now, don't you start feeling sorry for me," Mr. Matthews replied, his voice taking on that familiar stern tone that had once kept unruly teenagers in line. "I'm not too proud to work. Never have been. It keeps me active, gives me purpose." A young woman at the next register had already pulled out her phone, discreetly recording the interaction. Denzel didn't notice or didn't care. His attention was fully on the man who had once given him a second chance when most had written him off. "Do you remember what you told me when I got caught skipping class to audition for that school play?" Denzel asked. Mr. Matthews laughed, a deep, resonant sound. "I told you that talent without discipline is like a car without brakes. You might go fast, but you'll eventually crash. You made me serve 2 weeks detention," Denzel continued. "But you also convinced the drama teacher to reschedule my audition. You said," "I said potential should never be wasted, just properly channeled," Mr. Matthews finished. "And look where you channeled yours." By now, a small crowd had gathered, keeping a respectful distance, but clearly captivated by the genuine interaction unfolding before them. The store manager, a middle-aged woman named Carol, approached cautiously. "Mr. Matthews, you can take your break now if you'd like," she offered, clearly recognizing the significance of the moment. Denzel looked at his watch. "Actually, I was just about to grab some lunch. Would you join me, Mr. Matthews? I'd love to catch up properly." The elderly man hesitated, glancing at the half-filled grocery bags. "Go on, Harold," Carol encouraged. "We can cover for you." As Mr. Matthews removed his apron, Denzel turned to his abandoned cart. "I'll come back for these later, if that's all right." Carol nodded eagerly. "Of course, Mr. Washington. We'll keep them for you." As Denzel and Mr. Matthews walked toward the exit, the former principal leaned in slightly. "You don't have to do this, you know. I'm sure you're busy." Denzel placed a gentle hand on the older man's shoulder. "Some things are more important than busy, Mr. Matthews. You taught me that too." As they stepped out into the California sunshine, neither man noticed the phones recording their exit, or the social media posts already beginning to circulate. A moment of genuine human connection was about to go viral in a world desperately in need of such authenticity. The small Italian restaurant across from Wilson's Market provided the perfect setting for their reunion. Tucked away in a corner booth, Denzel and Mr. Matthews sat facing each other, the noise of the busy lunchtime crowd providing a bubble of privacy. "I still can't believe I ran into you like this," Denzel said, leaning forward as their waters arrived. "How long has it been?" 20 years. 23, Mr. Matthews corrected, his memory sharp as ever. "At that charity event for the school district. You donated that computer lab." Denzel nodded, remembering. "And your wife, Martha? How is she?" A shadow crossed Mr. Matthews' face. "She passed 5 years ago. Cancer." He straightened his shoulders. "That's when things got tighter financially. Medical bills, you know." "I'm so sorry," Denzel said, genuine sorrow in his voice. "Life happens," Mr. Matthews replied simply. "But enough about me. Tell me about your family, your work." As they ordered and began to eat, Denzel shared stories about his recent projects, his children's accomplishments, but his mind kept returning to the image of his former principal bagging groceries. "You know," Denzel said carefully, "I've been thinking about starting a foundation for retired educators. People who've given their lives to teaching deserving more than bagging groceries?" Mr. Matthews finished, raising an eyebrow. "There's dignity in all honest work, Denzel." "Of course," Denzel nodded quickly. "But there's also justice in honoring those who shape generations." Mr. Matthews studied his former student's face. "You always did have a strong sense of justice, even when it got you in trouble." They both laughed, remembering. Outside the restaurant, unnoticed by either man, the first video of their encounter had already reached 1 million views. By the time Denzel and Mr. Matthews finished lunch, their reunion had become an internet sensation. The video, initially posted by a customer named Rebecca Lynn, had been shared by several celebrity news accounts and was trending nationwide. The caption read, "Denzel Washington spots his former principal working as a grocery bagger, and what happens next will restore your faith in humanity." The comments section overflowed with emotional responses. "This is how you treat the people who helped make you who you are. Teachers deserve so much better than this." That hug looked so genuine. No cameras, no publicity, just real gratitude. As they stepped out of the restaurant, neither man was prepared for the small gathering of people waiting outside. 3 local news reporters with cameramen stood alongside a dozen onlookers, phones raised. "Mr. Washington, can we get a statement about your reunion with your former principal?" called out a reporter from KTLA. Denzel instinctively moved closer to Mr. Matthews, placing a protective hand on the older man's shoulder. "This is a private moment between me and someone very important in my life," he said firmly. "We'd appreciate some space." Mr. Matthews stood straighter beside him, that old authoritative presence returning despite his years. "I'm just an old schoolteacher having lunch with a former student," he added. Nothing newsworthy about that. But their humility only made the story more compelling. As they walked back toward the grocery store, Denzel's phone began buzzing incessantly. His publicist had sent multiple messages. You're trending on Twitter. ABC wants an interview with you and Mr. Matthews. This is beautiful, D. People are loving it. Denzel silenced his phone and turned to Mr. Matthews. I'm sorry about this. I didn't expect it to become a circus. The older man shook his head, a wry smile on his face. In all my years of education, I learned one thing for certain. People are always watching, especially the young ones. You never know when a simple action will teach the most important lesson. As they reached the entrance to Wilson's Market, Carol, the manager, rushed out to meet them. Mr. Matthews, you've become famous. Everyone's talking about the video. Inside, the store employees had gathered, applauding as the two men entered. Mr. Matthews looked embarrassed but touched by the display. Denzel checked his watch. I should let you get back to work, but I'd like to continue our conversation. Would you have dinner with my family tomorrow night? My wife would love to meet you. I'd be honored, Mr. Matthews replied, his voice slightly hoarse with emotion. As they said their goodbyes, neither man realized that their chance encounter was about to catalyze something much bigger than a viral video. Something that would change not just Mr. Matthews' life, but potentially the lives of thousands of retired educators across the country. 3 months after their chance encounter at Wilson's Market, Denzel Washington and Harold Matthews stood side by side on a different stage altogether. The grand ballroom of the Beverly Hilton Hotel. Before them sat over 500 guests, a mix of Hollywood celebrities, business leaders, and most importantly, educators from across the country. When I ran into Mr. Matthews that day, Denzel said into the microphone, his voice resonating through the packed room, I wasn't prepared for how it would affect me. Seeing the man who had once commanded the respect of an entire school, who had shaped so many young minds, including my own, bagging groceries to make ends meet, it didn't sit right. Mr. Matthews, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit rather than a store apron, stood tall beside his former student, his eyes glistening with emotion. That night, I couldn't sleep, Denzel continued. Not because I felt pity, but because I felt something was fundamentally wrong with a system that undervalues those who give so much. So I made some calls. The screen behind them illuminated with the logo of the newly established Matthews Education Legacy Foundation, accompanied by the slogan, honoring those who taught us to soar. Today, I'm proud to announce that with initial funding of $20 million and partnerships with 5 major corporations, the foundation will provide financial support, healthcare benefits, and housing assistance to retired educators facing economic hardship. The applause was thunderous. In the front row, Carol from the grocery store wiped away tears, sitting alongside several of Mr. Matthews' former colleagues from Fordham High. But this isn't about charity, Denzel clarified. This is about justice, about recognizing that teachers are the architects of our future, and ensuring they can live with the dignity they've earned. He turned to Mr. Matthews, who stepped forward to the microphone. When Denzel walked into my checkout line that day, I wasn't embarrassed to be bagging groceries, the former principal said, his voice strong despite his age. But I was concerned about many of my colleagues who couldn't even find such work, who were choosing between medicine and meals. He paused, surveying the attentive faces before him. In my 43 years as an educator, I taught many lessons, but perhaps the most important was this. It's not what you achieve that defines you, but what you do with that achievement. And today, I'm witnessing one of my students live that lesson in the most profound way. As the gala continued into the evening, the original video that had captured their reunion played on screens throughout the ballroom, now having amassed over 70 million views worldwide. What had begun as a viral moment had transformed into a movement. Later, as the event wound down, Denzel and Mr. Matthews found a quiet moment away from the crowd. You know, Mr. Matthews said with a small smile, I never expected retirement to be quite this busy. Denzel laughed. Are you kidding? The foundation needs its namesake. You've got schools to visit, speeches to give, We've already got requests from 30 states. The older man shook his head in wonder. All because I needed to supplement my social security. No, Denzel corrected him, placing a hand on his shoulder just as he had that first day in the grocery store. All because 40 years ago, you saw something in a troublemaking kid that he couldn't see in himself. This isn't about a viral video, Mr. Matthews. This is about the ripples one life can create. Ripples that turn into waves. Outside the hotel, across America, thousands of retired teachers who had watched the live stream of the gala felt, perhaps for the first time in years, that their contributions had not been forgotten. And in Los Angeles, a grocery store on Wilshire Boulevard had a framed photo behind the manager's desk. An Oscar-winning actor and an elderly grocery bagger, arm in arm, proving that sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that remind us of our shared humanity. As the evening came to a close, Mr. Matthews stood at the edge of the stage, looking out at the emptying ballroom. "You know what I'm most proud of?" he asked softly. "What's that?" Denzel replied, "That the viral video wasn't about you being a celebrity who did something flashy. It was about you being the man I always knew you could become. Someone who remembers where he came from and reaches back to lift others up." The former principal straightened his tie with dignity. "That's a lesson worth going viral,"